Hey, it's Teresa with ReeseDixon.com, and as I promised, I'm here to show you how to can. So if you saw my earlier videos, we made salsa, we made taco sauce, and now I'm going to show you how to use a water bath to can it and preserve it for at least a couple of years, if not longer. Okay, so here's what you're going to need. First of all, I have the food that I'm going to can cooking. You'll want to follow the recipe for whatever you're going to be making, but for our salsa and our taco sauce, the process is, it's called hot canning. So everything's going to be hot. Your food's going to be hot, your jars are going to be hot, your lids are going to be hot. Unless you get into like pickling and doing fruits, everything you'll be doing will be through this hot method. So if you use something besides the salsa and taco sauces, make sure to check your recipe. But this is pretty universal for all of these sauces and condiments and chutneys and things like that. So my food is cooking. It's pretty close to done. So the big trick with canning is just time management. You want to make sure that everything's ready when the food is, because you don't want to be overcooking your food or burning your food while you're waiting for everything else to get hot. So the food is cooking. I actually have all 4 of my burgers going right now because I'm doing a little bit of salsa, a little bit of taco sauce. I don't usually do it that way, but it's quite warm in here. So this is my canner. There are way simpler canners on the market that you don't have to get anything so fancy. This is actually a pressure canner. So what this means is that I can use an additional method to can food that is low acidity or low sugar, stuff that's a little bit riskier for bacteria. I can still do because of this pressure method. But for this is just a water bath. So you can basically just use any old big pot that has a good lid. So that's got lots of water in it. The one thing you'll need is a rack. So if you're just using a big, see this, oh, you can see I put it through its paces. But this came with my pressure canner. I'm just going to let that soak to the bottom. You can buy a separate rack if you're just using a big pot, but you want to make sure that there's something that keeps the jars off of the direct heat so you don't get any breakage. And then behind that I have another pan that's got all of my lids and rings getting nice and warm too. So now here's the lid to my pressure canner, but we're not pressure canning today, we're just doing a water bath, so it basically just needs to keep the steam in. Any old lid, even tin foil, will do in a pinch. And then you're going to want to have your station set up. So like I said, when the food's ready, you need to be ready. And for this, it's not too crucial, but if you're making jelly, that is crucial. So you need to be prepared. So I've got one towel here, and this is where I'll fill the jars. And then I've got another towel here, and this is where I'll take the jars out of the water bath to cool. You will make a big mess, so you can see I am using my wash rags. Along with your canner and your lids, you're going to need a few tools. So you're going to need a funnel to get the food into the jars. This is a magnet called a lid lifter, and this allows you to get the lids and the rims out of the hot water without burning yourself. This is called a headspace tool, and that lets you measure how much space is left in the jar when you're canning it. And this is a jar lifter, so that you can lift the jars out of the hot water without burning yourself. And all of these things I got together in a kit from Ball, which is the company that makes all the jars, and it was cheap. I can't even remember, a few bucks. Okay, so my water's hot now, my lids and rims are hot, so I got to put these jars into the water because they have to get hot too. When you buy jars, they come with lids and rims already on them. But if you reuse your jars like I always do, then you're going to need brand new lids. Rims you can use over and over again. So I'm going to take this, one-handed. Okay, so I'm going to take that rim off and put it in the hot water with all the others, and then make sure I have enough. See, you can buy the lids brand new like this, and make sure that you're buying the right size one for the jars you have. So this is a wide mouth jar, so I have to get a wide mouth lid, and then I'll put one more of these in the hot water, so I've got enough. So now I'm going to put my jars in the water and let those get nice and hot. So like 10 minutes or so. I'm going to lift these jars out of the water now. They'll be very hot, so be careful as you empty them. You don't splash water on yourself. And see, now you can see why I have this towel all set up to catch all the wetness. It can get really swampy really fast, so you want to take steps to work clean, and you will be grateful you did later on. Put your funnel in the jar, and I'm going to start with my taco sauce. So I'm just going to ladle this in. It's pretty self-explanatory. Now, let me tell you about Headspace, okay? So I showed you this tool, this Headspace tool. So Headspace, like I said, it's the space you leave in between where the food is and the lid. So the reason that's important is because when you put these back in the water bath, you have to boil it basically for 20 minutes, 15 minutes, it depends on the recipe. And as it's boiling, if you fill it up so high that the bubbles have no place to go, then the food will escape out the top. It'll escape out from the lid and break that seal. So filling too high is usually the cause. If you're not getting a good seal on your cans, it's usually because you filled it too high and all of that liquid came out. This is actually probably too high. So I'm going to take some of this out as I fill the others. And I'm going to leave, so here's my Headspace tool. I'm going to leave a good ½ of an inch. So here's that, and you can see how that falls into the center. See how it's all, that'll tell you. So I'm going to take some of that out and keep filling all of these jars until I either fill the jars or run out of taco sauce, whichever happens first. See how messy that got? It's a good thing I have towels down. I'm still going to have a lot of cleaning to do, but you know, you do what you can. Okay, so all my jars are filled now. So here's the other thing you have to remember to make sure that you get a good seal. Don't fill it too high, that's number one. Number two, wipe your rims. Especially when it's this liquidy and it gets so messy and everywhere. You just want to make sure that you wipe just that top part, because if there's a bunch of food, see how much sauce I got over there, if there's a bunch of food stuck to that rim, then the rubber on the lid can't seal to the glass, and so you won't get that great pop. It won't be preserved or shelf stable. So step number one, make sure you don't fill too high. Step number two, wipe all these rims. And then the third one, I'll show you when we're done processing it. You just don't want to wiggle it around. Okay, so I'll bring that up again. So those are the three things to remember when you want to make sure that you're getting a nice stable seal. Okay, so all the rims are wiped. Now I'm using my little magnet lid lifter here so I don't burn my hands, to put the lid on top. And then I'm going to take out a rim. Now, you don't technically have to boil the rims because these don't touch food, but I do it because I find it helps me. You have to turn it just to finger tight. That's the term, okay? So if it's hot, it helps because I can't crank on it. It's too hot. I just have to go hot, hot, hot. And that helps me to turn it to just the right tightness. If it's too tight, the air can't escape to create that vacuum. So I guess that's the fourth. I guess there's four things to remember when you want a nice tight seal. So this would be number three. Don't crank it super tight. The air has to be able to get out to create that vacuum. Okay, so let's do that with all the rest of our lids. And then we're going to take our lid lifter here and put this back into the canner. Now, it won't be there yet because I have a lot more jars to include, but that water has to cover the top of this. So once I put all the other jars in, it'll displace enough water so it'll cover it. But you have to make sure that that's covered, so you add water if you need to. There. So add water if you need to make sure that that lid is covered. So once you've got all your jars in there, put the lid on top, or tin foil, whatever. You want to keep the steam in there so that it gets really hot, and then let that boil for as long as the recipe dictates. In this case, I'm gonna do it for 15 minutes. When that's done, just turn everything off, take off the lid, and then I'll show you from that point. Timer just went off. I've turned off the heat. And when you lift this, it's gonna be really hot, so be careful you don't burn yourself. I've learned this lesson once or twice the hard way. So open it away from you. Let all that steam escape. And then with your jar lifter, lift them out. Now, resist the temptation to pour all that water off. I know it's so tempting, but don't do it, because this is the last of our tricks, is you lift it straight out, you do not tilt it, and you take it right over to your staging area and you let it sit. And don't move it. Well, I mean, you can, if you need to move the staging area, you can, but remember, straight up and down, and let it rest for a good 12 hours. And don't test it to see if the little popper has popped, because that can screw up the whole process. So leave it untouched for overnight is a good safe guess. You can start to hear these popping sometimes right away. Sometimes as I'm pulling them up out of the water, you'll hear that, which is just so much fun. That's how you know you did it right. When you hear that pop, it means you've got a nice good seal, and no bacteria is getting in here for the next couple of years. Oh, did you hear that? I think they might have already all popped. As the water level lowered and these came up out of the water, I think they already all popped. So that's great. That means we did it right. Okay, so I'm gonna let this cool before I drain the water, but that's it. I have now got all my canned taco sauce. Whew, so we just did a small batch just to show you. Typically, once I've got the canner out, then I'll have this going for a few days. This time I did 100 pints of salsa. I might have gone a little bit overboard, but you know, it wouldn't be me if I didn't, right? It's part of my charm. Just tell that to my husband. Anyway, so I hope that this was informative. Remember, let's see, what did we decide on? There were 4 keys to getting a good seal. Don't overfill, leave plenty of headspace. Wipe the rim so that the rubber can have great contact with the glass. Screw on the rim, but only to finger tight. You don't want to crank the rim down so that the bubbles have room to escape. And then the last one, don't tilt it when you're taking it out. You want to let that seal get nice and undisturbed. You don't want anything getting in between the rubber and the glass. And if you tilt it, you can spill some of the liquid out. Okay, so 4 steps and you will have perfect cans every time and amaze your friends and relatives with your culinary expertise. This is just the beginning. When my friend Cynthia taught me how to can, she created a monster. Jams and jellies are so much fun. The creativity is, I mean, the opportunities there are endless. But those are a little bit more challenging because you have to worry about the consistency of the jelly. Things like sauces and chutneys and pickles are practically foolproof. And they're so much fun. I just love hearing the little pop-pop-pops, and I love having a whole pantry just full of all these great things that I made. And I love it because it's a way of injecting these values that I have into my life in an actually pretty easy way. You know, I'm buying direct from the farmers, I'm buying local, seasonal, organic, I'm buying affordable. This is healthy, 100% homemade, no preservatives. The taco sauce, we did use corn syrup, but salsa, there's no high fructose anything, and I can feel great about feeding this to my family, but I don't have to go to this much trouble every week. Every time I make Mexican food for dinner, I don't have to go to this much trouble. I can just pull the can out from the pantry and I'm set to go. And I can still instill all those values that I love into my family's life. So I hope you enjoy it. Be brave. You can do it. Just exercise that creativity muscle and give it a try. And so leave me a comment if you do. Subscribe to the channel and shoot me any questions or comments you have. I'd love to hear it. See you guys next time. Bye.